Do you hate customer support? I'm not talking about talking with a customer service rep. I'm talking about actually doing customer support. If you run a business, if you run an online store, you know that this is one of the toughest things in the industry to handle, or in the aspect of a business. How to fix customers' problems and have to deal with it on the fly and answer questions constantly from different sources. This specific automation makes all those pieces come together and work without you actually lifting a finger. And what if you could save yourself 80% of the time from eliminating answering customer support emails, eliminating looking up orders, statuses on the orders, or even things like warranties, return policies, or even shipping details that you have to go out and look for manually? Well, those days are over now. And the best part is it's all safe and you're not leaking any sort of customer privacy data that could be going out into models that don't have any safeguards or guardrails to protect those specific policies. What's up, everybody? I'm back with another episode from JR Automations. This one is a great automation I think a lot of you guys will benefit from. There's a lot of good case studies out there that support it. So just to get started, I use this specific automation for customer support. And how it really relates to me is that when I first started out with my business in consulting, I started out working with e-commerce brands. As many of you may know, e-commerce is a very cutthroat industry. It's very difficult to increase margins and also be able to cover all the bases that need to be covered in running an online store. For instance, like one of the businesses I worked with for a long time, I did marketing for, they were running on a skeleton crew 24/7, like just the same person doing a bunch of different tasks, and it can be extremely overwhelming. It just overwhelms people. And if you can automate pieces of that business, you can save yourself a lot of headache and you can save yourself a lot of time from doing manual tasks. For instance, in this specific automation, customer support is one of the things that can be automated with AI agents, and that is what we're doing today. This whole automation is a customer support agent that handles incoming emails. Like for instance, if you see, customer support at Nike.com, like for instance, like a customer has a question on their order, they can message this specific agent and it will give you strong, very reliable replies to any sort of questions that are being asked of it. So for instance, or this agent can handle warranty questions, it can handle return policy questions, it can handle shipping questions, it can handle specific order questions where it can go and look at a customer's order and figure out what the status of it is in terms of if it's been paid for, if it's been fulfilled, if it's been shipped out, and how to view it in, for instance, today we're going over Shopify. So I know there's tons of integrations with Shopify. This is just another one that is really beneficial for anybody that uses Shopify or anybody that has wanted to work with companies that use Shopify. This is a really great thing to learn. And in any other aspect, you can integrate it with whatever sort of business you want, whether it be a service business, whether it be a product-based business. This can work for anything in those industries. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get into it. And this is a really exciting one. All right, everyone, I'm in the automation right now, and there's very key pieces to this that we have to go over for everyone to understand exactly how this is going to work and how you can actually run this without no code and implement it in your business today. I know what you're already thinking, like we're handling customer data, right? And that is true, but in this automation, there are a lot of safeguards that protect customer data, like customer emails, customer addresses, customer payment method that won't be seen by any open source models. So as you can see in the AI agent, the customer support agent that I have right here, you can probably see that it has an OpenAI node. And yes, I'm using an OpenAI node. However, I have put guardrails in system prompts, and also I'm not feeding it any specific data that can be harmful. The only thing that we are feeding into this AI agent is an order number and a email message. So the only thing that they can get from this automation and from the customer is going to be the order details. I'm literally just taking the internal data from the online store, which is order details. So whether the financial status is completed or whether the fulfillment status is completed or not completed, or if it's open or not, and then the overall status of what's going on with the order. So once I'm in here, we're looking at this actual model. As you can see, if you've never done this, you probably see a lot of different things going on and it can be kind of overwhelming. But I'm going to break it down very simply, piece by piece, so that you know exactly what you're doing if you download this JSON file that I'm going to put in the description. So I just wanted to give you a quick basis of that, answer any questions that may be going through your head, like, oh, is this data safe? Can these OpenAI agents or models be reliable in handling customer data? Well, at the end of the day, in this automation, they will not be handling any customer data specific to breaking any policies of privacy or anything like that. So rest assured, this automation is safe even if you implement it within an actual business. literally the first thing we're going to do is we're going to implement some new systems. If you haven't been on my YouTube channel before, I've showed you how to implement API systems for Gmail and Google Sheets, things like that. This one's a little bit different. However, Google Drive API is using the same ones that you do if you went into Google Cloud and you use your credentials, like your client ID and your client secret. So that's literally the same credentials that you'd put in the Gmail node or the Google Sheets node. So before I get into any of this, we need to know a few new topics that I haven't covered yet in any of my YouTube videos. So the first one is we're going to be using Supabase as a way to store specific information that this AI agent can reference about the business. So anything from return policies or warranties or replacements or any sort of defects that you have within this product. And just so you know, all the information that I'm using, all the data that I'm using is completely test data. It doesn't actually belong to any businesses specifically. I've just created all this test data just for testing purposes and showing you what this automation is capable of. So to start out, I am going to show you how to first get an API key from Supabase and then how to actually implement files into that so that the AI agent can actually reference that through what's called a vector store. So if you don't know anything about LLMs, this is a great place where I'm going to very briefly explain how it works and how actually these large LLMs are being tested and also being taught different things in terms of data. So I want you to picture a vector store as like a 4 or 5D dimension box. And a 4 or 5 dimension box, well, I mean, you can think of it as a ton of different dimensions. But in fact, for OpenAI, there's 1,536. So that's a ton of dimensions, right? It just allows the model to be able to reference different pieces that correspond into formulating a response. So I guess the best way to think about it is if you put in the prompt, tell me about apples and bananas and what they have in common. Okay, so in a vector store, you have dimensions and you have places of reference. So what the LLM is going to do, it's going to go and it's going to find anything it can find about bananas, and that would be a dimension. And then the next thing it's going to do, it's going to go find everything it can about apples, and that's another dimension. And then what it does is it uses different vectors. So basically a point on like XY axis, if you can picture that, that's how a dimension is mapped. So it's going to match those two up and it's going to find commonalities of different dimensions that relate to each other. So for instance, like it'll eventually figure out that, okay, a banana and an apple are both fruits, right? So that's one thing they have in common. Maybe another one is that they both have seeds or they both grow in a tree, like different comparisons that they can make based off of dimensions. And what makes AI models so robust and so fast is that they can map these things out extremely fast with things like GPUs. We're going to leave that up to a completely different subject, but in terms of like speed with OpenAI, Gemini, all these things, they can map things extremely fast with very expensive and very high-powered computers that go and find this data very fast and very efficiently. So what we're going to be doing with the Supa vector store is actually building a dimension table. All these embeddings, which is the dimension pieces of going and finding these specific information, we're going to be mapping out and embedding data from a PDF. And in that PDF, which I'm going to show you right now. All right, so this is just a really brief document that is giving straight up basics, and this is all test information, so it doesn't apply to any specific store or anything like that, but this just shows policies and operations to reference, so the AI model knows, you know, what to look for specifically about the business that will give a customer that's looking for support information about it, information about the products, information about the warranties, refunds, returns, things like that. So it's very brief customer company overview, has order and shipping information, tracking information, returns and refunds, the processes, exchanges if you wanted to make an exchange, defects, damages, or lost items, things like that, and then a warranty policy. So this is just a PDF. I think it's 3 pages long, so it's super small compared in the grand scheme of actually implementing like if you were for an actual business, but this is perfect just for testing. So this is the PDF. I have this saved in Google Drive already. That's why it's referencing in this automation. If I go into here, you can see from list customer support reference PDF. Okay, so that's going to be the PDF that we're going to reference and actually insert into this vector store. So in this next step, I'm going to go and show you exactly how to open an API in Supabase. All right, so here's Supabase. All you need to do is type in supabase.com and it'll take you directly to this page to sign in or sign up. All right, so I've already started an organization, but it'll probably pop up and tell you to start a new organization actually I can just move over here and you can see I can start a new organization. So I'm going to go into my normal one And this is just built off a fake email, fake account. So yeah, it's pretty silly, but this is my fake email. So the first thing that you're gonna do is you need to go and actually get your API key. So what that looks like is you're gonna go to Project Overview, and you're gonna scroll down, and you should see something like this. So Project API. Now, yeah, so this is where you go to actually get the API. You would copy this project URL right here and your API key, and you go back over to your init. You'd open and add a Supabase vector store. So I'm gonna go over here and show you that. So what I do is just go Supabase to vector store. So you go down to vector store, click that, and you do update or add documents to vector store. So click that, and it's gonna bring you to a screen that looks like this. We're in Supabase vector store. You'll see that I have operation mode, insert documents. I have my table name, which we haven't created yet, and then I have my embedding batch size as this. And then the query name is match documents. All right, so we're back in Supabase. We're gonna go over to the SQL editor. And this is what's actually gonna be building your table, which you have to do first in order to be able to insert a document, okay? So SQL editor, all right? And then I'm gonna tell you exactly what to put in this sort of terminal that will be able to execute on building your first table for your document. Okay, so I'm back in Supabase and I'm in my SQL editor, and right now I have this as an untitled query, but this will be in the description for how to actually build your table. I know a lot of people don't have the coding background or, for instance, the SQL querying background. So I'm just gonna go ahead and give this to you so you can see it for yourself. And this will already be building a table called customer support. So basically what this is saying, okay, create a table, customer support, creating an ID column, it's creating a content column, a metadata column, and an embedding vector 768 embedding vector column. So it's creating all this. This is what that final table looks like, and I'm gonna tell you how to get that final table in the next step. Okay, so in this next step, I have two different things that you may not recognize either. And one is an embeddings Ollama, and the other is a default data loader. So these are two very important things that you need to have attached to your Supabase vector store, so you can start inserting documents into tables like I showed you in the previous step. But essentially what you want is to have these two models up and running so that you can run it, and the embeddings model actually is the one that's creating the embeddings and inserting the document into the store. So that's what the purpose of the default data loader is. It's making sure the type of data is a binary file, which is the one from the PDF. It's loading all input data. Its data format is PDF, like I said, and its text splitting is simple. So if you have all of these parameters set, you will get a document that gets fed into a table efficiently and also simply. This, you may have to change your settings if you have a larger document, but for this aspect of a 3-page PDF, it'll work fine. So like I said, I have that Ollama set up on my self-host, but I'm using the model Nomic Embed Text latest version. So I did have to update this in my self-hosted VPS, but this is the model that I think works best. It's most efficient, and it can handle pretty large documents. So that's what it's doing. The only thing this download file Google Drive node is doing is it is taking the file from my Google Drive, which is customer support reference, downloading it. So if I executed this step, it would be downloading it. So there it is on the right side as a data file. And then if I went over here and executed this, which I'm not going to do, what it's going to do is going to use the default data loader and the embeddings tool to actually create this in Supabase vector store to get the final output, which is that table that I showed you earlier. So that's the gist of this. All this information will be in the description if you need to go back and reference it later to actually get this thing up and running with your store information. All right, now that we've kind of understood how Supabase vector store actually works, I'm going to move on into the actual legitimate agent workflow. So if I move over here to where we start, and I'm just going to move over here to the triggers node, which is going to be Gmail. In this situation, I'm using Gmail just because it's easy for me. It's easy to pin data. It's easy to get the right information that you want and pretty much get exactly what you need in terms of all the information. So you're getting the snippet, which is actually the email body. You're getting the actual email deliverer, you're getting everything that you possibly need to start building a good basis of data so that you can log things. You can tell the AI agent to actually get things from what it needs to make, high quality judgment calls on how to message the customer and how to give it the right information. So to begin with, I just have it set to my credentials through the client ID and client secret. I have this on a mode of every minute it's getting a new one, and I am pulling it in the event is message received, and it's simplified. So I have this data pinned, but pretty much it could be running on a minute-to-minute basis. So every minute it's fetching a new event from Gmail and triggering the workflow to activate and go through the process of actually messaging that customer back. How I can see this working for a business is you have a email like customer support at whatever your business's name is.com, and the only thing that it receives is customer support emails. So you put it up on your site, and if a customer had any sort of problems with the service, any sort of problems with the products, that's the email that they'd actually be going to get this information. So I just have my basic email, but for testing sake, that's fine. So for the next one is a set node, and I'm just gonna execute this so you see exactly what's happening. So in this is where it gets tricky, because now we're starting to get into the privacy realm of getting people's legitimate emails and actually using them as data within a workflow. So luckily in this specific canvas, which is N8N, it's self-hosted. So none of the data that's actually going in here is leaving. It's not cloud hosted, it's self-hosted. So in this situation, using a real email like the one I'm just using as a test one, it's safe. Now, if you were to go and use a cloud hosted one, who knows? It could be safe, it might not be. You're risking a lot of things with that. You're risking any sort of privacy policy that you have with the customers and not using their data for anything malicious, not selling their data or giving their data away or a place where it could be stolen. So now we have a set node that actually is going to be producing a token ID. Now this token ID is how we're going to go back towards the back end of the automation to reference the customer's email, because we don't want the customer's email to be going through the full process of going through an email or going through an AI agent like an OpenAI model where that email could be compromised. And it's very important to understand that the email piece of it is crucial, because it is privacy. It is data that could be used maliciously or sold. So it's very important that we keep that private and keep that contained within a self-hosted area, a self-hosted space, and it's not being leaked out on an AI agent. For instance, with these closed source LLMs like OpenAI. So we're protecting that by using this token ID that will actually reference this through a Google Sheet reference later on in the workflow. So it's avoiding that agent part. And the only thing that's actually going into the agent piece is the email body. So as you can see, it says, give me a status update on my order, please. It's order number 1002. And then it's being fed this token ID, which is actually being logged in this next step. Okay, so in this next step, we are currently in the Google Sheets node. So we're right here. So I'm going to click into this and show you exactly what's going on here. These are the things that are being logged into a Google Sheets customer support's ticket log space. So the reason why this is important to have is because if you have to go back and reference, okay, John Doe had a problem with his product, and maybe we thought this solution was resolved, but actually, there's further information that we're finding out. Maybe he didn't receive his product through shipping. Maybe, the logistics company had an issue, whatever it may be. This is where you can actually reference it and go back and look at what the actual ticket in the support ticket was happening and what the actual customer had a problem with initially. So if I execute this, it's going to put into a Google Sheet. So that's what's actually being logged in Google Sheets. Okay, now we're finally moving into actually feeding the AI agent data. So with this AI agent, we are actually looking at the data that's being fed, and it's very important that you feed this model or these models that are within the AI agent actually run it specific information, because if you don't, and you don't specifically guard information, it will run wild and it will utilize whatever sort of information it has to answer the problem or answer with a well-educated, well-constructed response. So in this set node, I have it just receiving the email body. And this is super important because you don't want to give it customer emails. You don't want to give it customer names. You don't want to give it any sort of customer information that could break privacy policies. So I'm literally just feeding this agent email body, and that's it. And in the next step, I'll show you exactly what that looks like. Okay, so now we're finally looking at the customer support agent and what different things kind of go into it. So in this particular AI agent, it has two pieces. It has the customer support agent, which is actually like the orchestrator in a sense. So it's making decisions about what tools to use, what to say, what to give tools to use, and how it's going to find information. And then once it has that information, once all these tools have done their job, it's going to output a specific output that will be pieces for what the automation needs later on to run. So the first thing that we're going to go over is the model. So I'm using OpenAI, and the reason I'm using this is because it's literally fast, it's efficient, it's the best model out there for tooling, because n8n has a direct tooling mechanism with OpenAI. So I'm using GPT 4.1 mini. You could use, really any of these. The smaller ones are going to be a little bit less efficient and a little bit more hallucinogenic, but the GPT 4.1 mini is the one that I'm using because I think it's the most responsive and it gets the job done. So that's the OpenAI chat model I'm using. These different pieces here are all tools. So when you look at an AI agent node in n8n, you can see it has a chat model attachment, it has a place to attach memory, and a place to attach tools. So I had added a bunch of different tools to begin with, and then I narrowed it down to these three that work the most efficiently and reduce the number of tokens that actually needed or credits needed to run it. So in this first tool, I have a find the order Shopify specific node. And I'm going to click into that, and I'm just going to give you a quick breakdown of what this is actually doing and how it's helping the model. So I have it titled find the order. So basically in the description, I have it saying retrieves all Shopify orders so the AI can locate the order matching the extracted order number, and returns all orders. The AI must identify the correct one. So for resource, I have order. For operation, I have get many. I have return all, and then I wanted to return the financial status, the fulfillment status, and the regular status. And these are all options. I just have any for all of them. So you can think of those as like parameters to which the AI model can reference an order. So if, for instance, in this piece, I said it's order number 1002. So it basically gets all the orders and then matches it with the order that's corresponding with the email body. The next piece is Supabase. So this tool is a customer support document tool that is being called by OpenAI models to go and retrieve any sort of information like refunds, returns, exchanges, defect sizing, everything that was in the PDF document that we saw before. The AI will be able to reference this and use that information to make decisions and answer the customer's email. And then finally, we have a compose email agent tool, which is actually utilizing another model to actually compose an email and get more information from that first agent, so it can compose an email that makes sense. It's contextual with the order ID or any sort of question you ask in that customer email. It can be answered through this composition of an email. So this puts out the actual body that will be given to the customer in the next step. All right, so I'm actually just going to execute this step and show you exactly how it works and what it's actually doing to find this order. So it's running, it goes and references the Shopify tool, and now it's composing an email to be actually sent out. All right, so as you can see, it output a message, and it probably took, we'll call it 15 seconds to actually execute the whole thing. But here it gives the intent, the order status, the email subject, and it says update on your order 1002. And that's the subject. And then the email body says, hi there, thank you for reaching out about your order number 1002. We are currently processing your order and will update you as soon as there's progress on its fulfillment. You can check the current status and details of your order anytime by visiting your order status page. Then it says, if you have any questions or need further assistance, please feel free to contact us. Best regards, JR Automation's customer support. And then it gives a result, which it says it retrieved the order 1002 details with financial status paid and financial and fulfillment status null for customer inquiry about order status. So basically what it's saying is it went and found that corresponding order ID, and it found that the financial status was paid and the fulfillment status means it has not been fulfilled by the company yet. So, and it also gave inference to the customer saying, if you want to go check your status or your order status, you can visit the status page, which if it proves that he or she actually purchased that item, so they can go to Shopify and see that the order status is whatever, fulfilled. So that's basically it referencing an order. And for the next, I'm going to actually ask it another question. So I asked it another question just to test it out and see if it's actually going to reference Supabase and get the right information. So I just sent an email saying, hello, I purchased from you not that long ago. I want to know what your return policy is. And we're going to see what it says. So I'm going to go back to the AI agent. I'm going to actually execute this step and see what happens. So it's already accessing the customer support Supabase piece. It should be able to compose an email now. So it's doing that, and we'll see what it says. All right, so here's what the AI agent replied with. So this is the subject line. It said, information about our return policy. So it said, hi there, thank you for reaching out to us. Could you please clarify which item you're referring to or share your order number? This will help us provide you with the most accurate information regarding the return policy. Looking forward to your response. And then it said in the result, return detailed return policy support guidance, but requested order number or item details from the customer for more accurate assistance, which is awesome because you want it to be super accurate. You want it to have as much context as possible and as much information as possible because it's making very specific decisions and you don't want it to hallucinate or tell a customer something completely wrong. So this is all good things, and I'm going to just ride with this and show you what the actual email looks like in its structure. Okay, so we're currently in the email that I opened up that was sent by the JR Automation Apparel customer support agent. And it's super detailed because I did put in HTML, which is just a lot cleaner. I think that looks just a lot better, but it's structured nice. It says, hi there. Like, it's not all just one big block of text. It's nicely split up, and yeah, it just looks nice. And you can go down here if you actually, I don't have these connected, but if you did, you could see store, policies, contact support, all these different things that just give a lot of better information than just sending out like a basic text email. So I'll go back to the structure and show you guys what that looks like in the Gmail node. All right, yeah, so this is just the standard HTML, basis of the expression that goes into the actual Gmail node. And this is just makes it look all clean. As you can see, I have this email body inserted in here. Just from this text on the left side, you can see that that's what's being inserted. If I go back out here, I'll show you the structure a little bit closer to what Gmail actually looks like. So at the bottom here, I have Kara JR Automation from Apparel, which is the name. I am clicking append this attribution because I don't want to show that it was sent by n8n. I want it to be like it was either sent by a super high level computer or an individual themselves. And I think this does a great job of doing that. And I'll also show you how this gets referenced and the email gets referenced to being put in this to field of Gmail node. All right, so if you remember from the beginning of the video, I talked about how important it is to not give out private data like email addresses, real addresses, phone numbers, names, payment methods, all those different things. Well, this just goes along with what I've been talking about from keeping data safe. So as you can see here, this is an append or update row in Google Sheets. So what I'm doing here is I'm mapping each column manually. And if you remember correctly from the customer support ticket log in this document, I have the token ID, right? So what I did was I matched those up to get the email. And I'll show you that in this piece right here. So I matched it using the token ID. And as you can see, the token ID is using to match, has that same token ID from earlier in the workflow. And what it's actually getting is this email. And it's actually using the email from earlier in the automation to match up with the token ID that's actually inside that Google Sheet. So the email is not getting leaked. It's not getting leaked through closed source LLMs like OpenAI. And that's how you would protect it if you were doing this for an actual business. In this automation, this is why it can be used that way, because I've seen a lot of people on the internet that build all these great automations, build all these outreach automations, all these internal data automations, but in reality they can't actually be used by businesses for this exact reason, because you can't be spreading all this customer data and privacy data across pieces like OpenAI or Gemini or Claude or whatever closed source LLM that people are using these days. You won't be able to have your privacy policies held in check because you can't be feeding privacy data to these LLMs because they're all cloud hosted. And whether they say that they're not using them to test, they're not using them to keep internally, but who really knows? We don't know. Businesses do things like that all the time. But this guarantees that you're keeping your customers' data safe, so they can rest easy that whatever information that they give to this business, it's going to be safe and not used maliciously or fraudulently to either sell their data or just have it out in the ether for anybody to see and anybody to take. So that's my automation, and that completes how everything works. Hey, so I hope you enjoyed the video. I really enjoyed making it. And if you're a business out there, or if you're a person that works in, let's say, customer service or customer support, this is a great automation to learn and a great automation to utilize if you want to 10x your output. I mean, I don't think that people are going to lose their jobs to AI. I believe that people will lose their jobs to people that actually can utilize AI and 10x their output. So imagine if you could do 10 times the amount of stuff that you're doing right now in the same or less amount of time. Pretty valuable, right? I think so. I think businesses really think so. And there's a lot of cases out there that if you design something for a business, if you design something for the job that you're currently working, that just solidifies the fact that you are highly skilled, you know what you're talking about, you can get things done, and you can do 10 times the amount of output or compared to the person next to you, which is super valuable. And that's the biggest thing for me, is making sure that people have the knowledge, people have the understanding, and they can execute on things like this where they can actually get the most out of their job or the most out of their business. Please subscribe and like my videos, because I'm coming out with new videos every week that pertain to a different department. For my past videos, I did one with finance, I've done one with sales, now I'm doing this one with customer support. So all these different things are facets of a business that can be automated and automated safely without leaking any sort of private data. So stay tuned for my next episode, which is coming in a week, and thanks for watching.